Hey guys, and welcome to devlog 5, where I'll be showing off a lot of art this time. I've done the art for the city area and the fantasy dream town area, and I'll be talking a tiny bit about the story as well, because I haven't really talked about the story so far. If you'd prefer to read a blog version of this devlog, I now have a website where I have all of my devlogs in blog version, complete with GIFs as well, so I will link that below. I also have a newsletter now that will notify you of any upcoming devlogs on my website, so feel free to subscribe to that also. For the last month and a half, I've been putting all my focus into pixel art and building the world of the game. The game takes place between two worlds, the real world in which the main character lives and a fantasy world that they visit when they dream. The dream world mirrors the real world as it represents the inner turmoil of the main character and their view of the world and their real life acquaintances, and I've laid out the real city and fantasy town in similar ways to represent this. I figured this would be a good time to get a bit into the overarching story of the game. The main character, currently named as I always feel far too much pressure naming characters, is having a hard time coming to terms with their father's illness and frequently finds escape in playing video games. Then one night they dream of a fantasy world that feels similar to the real one and find out that their father is in fact king of the land of this world and is also ill in this land. The spirit of Lord Lunacy, an old king from almost 1,000 years past, is using his power that should be used to protect the land to instead ensue chaos and deteriorate people's minds, and has even turned on the king when he tried to confront him, causing his illness. The king's right-hand man, Leopold, has requested the main character's help in finding old artifacts that each of the last 8 ruling kings have owned, as only direct royal bloodline can detect these items in the world. These items should have the power to save the king from his mind illness, and he will have the strength to once again face Lord Lunacy. On the journey to find these items, the player will find many friends in the form of party members, each of which is the dream representation of someone from the real city. One of the characters I introduced in the most recent video, the pirate ranger called Art, is the main character's friend in the real world that frequents an old abandoned arcade located in the city. I'll show you the art I have created for each area, for both the real life area and the fantasy dream world version. Please note I have not designed the walk animations for the real life version of the main character, so they won't always be going around in a fantasy blue cloak in their real life also, but for the sake of showing what I have done so far, I'll just use that animation. The shop area of the fantasy dream town is a little bigger than the city version and houses 4 shops, while the real life city only holds 1 shop, a basic grocer's. I decided for there to only be 1 shop for the real life city instead of replicating all 4 from the fantasy town, as in our modern times 1 shop usually sells everything, while as the fantasy town goes by more medieval times when people had specific trades. There is a downtown area connected onto the shopping district with an inn or bar area also. The bar in the fantasy town has more of an old inn feeling, whereas the city bar is more of a modern looking spot, although both are incredibly similar in layout. The Uptown areas are connected to the castle or main character's house, and also a road that leads to a rundown arcade or games parlour area. In the fantasy version there is an old games parlour that's out of business, while as in the city version it's an old arcade instead. The interior of the city arcade will be used for a tutorial area for the basic combat of the game, as Art will have fixed up one of the old arcade machines for the main character to try. The games parlour for the moment doesn't have much of a function, but I'm leaving these areas open for possible implementation of mini-games if that proves to be something I have time to add. The castle in the fantasy world actually represents the player's house, although the front yards are very, very different, as you can see. The inside of the castle and the inside of the characters' houses are a bit different as well. The main character's house has modern areas, such as a bathroom, how fancy, and an upstairs hallway, while as the castle only has 1 large main room and a small staff kitchen, similar to something of more medieval fantasy times. The king's room, or main character's parents' room, have some similarities also. A lot of the furnishings are recoloured and redecorated to meet more of a medieval fantasy theme in the fantasy areas. For the main character's personal room, I wanted to add personal touches to the real life version in particular, to show the potential inspirations of what could inspire a dream so vivid. It's been a long time of creating new art. I also have a party member to show you, Leopold, the king's right-hand man and secretly the greatest monk in town, but as I haven't added the animations for them into the game, I'll wait and show that next month. If you've stuck around until then, thank you for sticking around, first of all, and don't forget to like and subscribe.